Cisco Discovery Protocol, and other network discovery and documentation tools. As a network administrator, it is your job to work smart and not hard. To accomplish this, you must be constantly looking for new tools which make performing your job easier. This is not laziness, but efficiency. Cisco's Discovery Protocol, or CDP, is one such tool. With the growing size of today's company networks, it is imperative that you create and maintain good documentation on the layout and other pertinent information of your networks. In a Cisco network, CDP is an excellent tool for discovering the devices in your network and how they are connected. This can be easily done from your desk rather than running around the company building trying to trace wires. While the physical review of your server rooms, network closets, and equipment racks will eventually be needed, the creation of a logical network diagram based on the information we gather from CDP is invaluable. The objectives of this video will be to discuss the purpose and use of the Cisco Discovery Protocol, review other network discovery tools, introduce Microsoft Visio as a network documentation tool, and finally, identify items that good network documentation should contain. So what is the Cisco Discovery Protocol, or CDP? CDP is designed to collect information about other network devices. Information is collected from devices which are directly connected to the device on which you are running CDP. You can only run CDP on Cisco switches and routers. CDP does not work with non-Cisco equipment. There are, however, other software apps which run on both Cisco and non-Cisco equipment. So let's begin by taking a close look at some of the commands that are available to you with respect to CDP. Let's start off with the commands that we use in the privileged mode or enable mode. The first one is show CDP, and this simply shows us the status of the CDP protocol and specifically whether or not it's running. The second command is show Cdp Neighbors, and this provides a display of directly connected network devices that are reporting to CDP. You need to remember that any CDP commands here are only going to show you devices that are directly connected to the device that you're running CDP on. If you want to see other devices, you have to jump over to some other device in the network, run CDP there, and see what devices it is connected to. Again, we'll take a closer look at this using a demonstration on Packet Tracer and show you how the commands work. The final privileged mode command is show Cdp Entries asterisk, and what this does is for every device that CDP finds, it provides detailed information about what it knows about all of those devices. Next, we have our global configuration mode commands, and there are two. CDP run, which simply turns CDP on, then no CDP run, which simply stops CDP. One of the things that you need to remember is that while CDP is extremely useful, once your network is up to speed or your documentation is complete, you should go around and turn CDP off on all of your devices. And the reason for this is that CDP, like any other service or protocol, takes up the device resources, and we want to try to minimize unnecessary resources in order to provide better performance on our network devices. Our next set of helpful commands when working with CDP would include those that we run on hosts such as PCs and servers. The first of which is simply ipconfig. You've all used ipconfig in the past, and it's used at the command prompt, and it displays all sorts of information that has been gathered with regard to the IP configuration on that host device. ARP-A, also a good command for displaying the ARP table, which shows you both MAC addresses as well as IP addresses. Other Cisco commands, which will run on either Cisco switches or networks, would include show IP route, which displays the IP routing table, as well as on switches, show MAC address table, which again shows you the various MAC addresses, shows you the ports, and shows you the devices that are, or the ports that are active. Finally, we've got the old standby, which is ping. Ping allows us to determine whether or not a device is responding to us. It allows us to verify that a device is out there. One special way of pinging an entire network is to use the broadcast address. And in this example, on the very last, I'm showing ping 192.168.1.255. Now, assuming that we're trying to document a network with a network ID of 192.168.1.0, then its broadcast address is going to be .255 for the last octet. This will cause every device in that network to respond, provided it's not blocking pings. Many security packages and security configurations will tell you to turn ping capabilities off. So depending upon how your system is configured, this may or may not work. All right. Okay, now let's take a look at using some of these commands on a small test network. I've created this network. As you can see, it has three small sub-networks: Network A, Network B, Network C. They have network IDs of 192.168.1.0, 2.0, and that should be 3.0. Let's fix that. 3.0. And I've statically assigned most of the IP addresses in here. Starting on the left, you've got PC0, and it has 192.168.1.10. And then we've got our switch with a VLAN address of 1.5. And next we'll take a look at router 0, and on the fast Ethernet 00, it has a 1.1, and then on the serial port it's got a 2.1. On the other side, the serial port is going to have a 2.2, and the fast Ethernet is going to have a 3.1. Then your switch 1 has a VLAN of 3.5, and finally this server out here has an address. Okay, now next let's go over to PC0, and what we're going to do is from PC0 we're going to start moving across the network, discovering the other devices. Now, while you can see all of these devices right now, let's just pretend that you can't see them, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to identify what devices are out there, what connections do they have, and so on. All right, so let's go to PC0, and we're going to start with our command prompt. Now, the first thing that I would do is I would just find out what is my default router using ipconfig. So ipconfig. Okay, so we're going to run ipconfig, and let's do a /all, and there's our information. So as we look at this, what we see is that the IP address of our PC is 192.168.1.10, and our router Okay, our nearest router, which is the default gateway, is 192.168.1.1. So I know that there is another device out there, our router, which has an address of 1.1. The next thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to telnet over to my router. Okay, and hold on one second. So we enter in the address for the router, 192.168.1.1, and we say telnet, and it's now asking us to log in. So I gave it the password, our standard password, and this is going to be V password. Okay, and it allows me in, and now you can see we're talking to router 0. So I'm going to say enable, and the enable password is simply just password in lowercase letters. And now I'm at the privileged mode. So at this point I can gather some information. One of the first things that I might want to do is see if CDP is running. Now again, we're talking to this router right here, router 0. So let's see if CDP is running. We say show CDP. And we can see that CDP is in fact running, that it's sending packets back and forth every 60 seconds. Okay. The next command that we might want to try is show Cdp Neighbors, and I'm just going to abbreviate that as NEI. And here we are. We've got some information on 2 devices that we're able to see. Okay, so there is router 1. Okay, we're on router 0, and this thing sees a router 1. It actually sees this device over here, and it also sees switch 0. Now remember, CDP will only show you those devices that are directly connected to the device we're communicating with, and the device we're communicating with is router 0, and router 0 is able to see 2 devices, switch 0 over here, and able to see router 1 over here. So as we look at this table, we see that okay, router 1 is connected via serial port 00. And it is, the R indicates that yes, it is a router, and that it happens to be a 2600 router, and the port that it's connected to over on that is serial 00. For switch 0, we see that it's connected to fast Ethernet 00 on the router. We see that it, yes, indeed is a switch, that it is a 2960, and it is connected to the 2960 on port fast Ethernet 0/24. Okay, so from here, the next thing we want to see is we want to see some details about these 2 devices, and we're going to use the command show Cdp Entries, and then we're going to use the asterisk to say I want to see all of them. Okay, and what did I do here? Show CDP, oh okay, entry, not entries, and we'll say asterisk, and we'll press enter. Okay, so this scrolled a little bit. Let's scroll it back so we can see what it gave us. So here we are. The first device is router 0. Okay, see that here, and you can see that, or I'm sorry, router 1. All right, so it's telling us about this router right here, and it's saying that the address that it's able to see router 1 on is 192.168.2.2. So that tells me how to get to the next device, and we'll do that in just a moment. It shows me that we're connected via serial 00, and that on its side, on router 1, it's also serial 00. Let's continue down. Let's take a look at what we've got down here. Then we've got switch 0, okay? And switch 0 is showing me that it has an address of 192.168.1.5, okay? Now another thing that I can do is I want to ping and I want to see if I've got any other devices out here. So 192.168.1.255. And what you're seeing here is that we got responses back from 1.10 and 1.5. So there are only two devices other than router 0. There are only two other devices out here. One of them is the 192.168.1.10, which is our PC all the way over here. And the other is 1.5, which is actually my switch. Now, at this point, I'm going to telnet over to my switch. Telnet and 192.168.1.5. Again, it's asking for the password, and this is the V password. And you'll see that we're talking to switch 0. I'm going to do enable, and then just password, lowercase letters. And now I'm going to, now that I'm talking to switch 0, now I'm going to start looking at my Cdp commands. Okay, so Cdp, and it shows me that Cdp is running. Okay, in fact, if we do a do, or not a do, but just a show run, let's show the running configuration file. And you'll notice that one of the commands that we have very early on, we've got our host name, switch 0, and our enable password and so on. But let's see. And then we have all of our configuration stuff in here, so this is all good. Okay, now let's go into show Cdp Neighbors. And again, remember that Cdp will only show you devices, network devices that are directly connected to this device, and only Cisco devices. So remember that as well. And there's only one other device that one other network device that switch 0 is connected to, and that's router 0. Now, it is connected, switch 0 is also connected to PC 0, but that's not a network device, okay? That is a host device. All right, and let's try our show Cdp entry and then star. And here now it's going to give us information about router 0. Looking back the other way, quite honestly, we already had that information. Okay, so at this point we're going to continue to explore here. Now this is kind of strange because we first logged into router 0, then from router 0 we logged into switch 0. Okay, well, the next thing that I can do is I can, if you recall, if we go back to our notes back here, we said that router 1 had an address of 2.2. Where is that? Okay. Oh, I skipped right by it. Here it is. So that router 1 has an address of 2.2. So now at this point, let's go over to router 2 or router 1 and look at it. So we're going to telnet over to 192.168.2.2. Okay. All right. On second thought, let's get out of switch 0. Let's get back to router 0 and try to reach router 1 from there. So I'm going to use a command. It's Control Shift and the 6 key. And then we're going to, oh, hold on, need to make this active. Okay, so Control Shift 6 and then X. And what this does is it logs me out of switch 0 using telnet, and it now brings me back to router 0. And you can see router 0 here at the bottom. All right, so I'm at router 0, and just for kicks, I'm going to ping 192.168.2.2 to make sure I can see that and we get 100%. Before I jump over to router 1 there, let's just do a show IP route, which shows our routing table. And this can be very telling, because if the routers are working and so on, I already knew that I was connected to the network 192.168.1.0, and I found that there was also a network 192.168.2.0, which gave us our connection over to router 1 here. But now I'm picking up information that there is a third network out there, and I can now jump over to that network as well, as I go exploring here. All right, so that was very, very informative. Let's continue on. So we're going to go from router 0 to router 1, and we're going to say telnet, and then we're going to specify 192.168.2.2, and it's asking for our authentication. So we're going to say v password, and that now gets us to router 1. We'll go into the enable mode, and again the password is just password, lowercase letters, and here we are at the router 1 prompt. Let's do a show CDP, and we see that CDP is running. Let's do a show Cdp Neighbors, and now notice that I can see router 0 from where I came from, and I now see switch 1. Okay, if I do a excuse me, a ping, and I do 192.168.3.255, let's see who comes back. So what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing two IP addresses that are coming back to us. A 3.10 and a 3.5. So I'm now seeing switch 1, and I am also, although I really don't know what it is, I see that there's a 3.10, and that's our server out there. Okay, so as you can see, I've essentially have walked my way across the network. I can next jump over to switch 1, and I can see that switch 1 is 3.5. Let's see if we can get there from here. Telnet 192.168.3.5, and there we go. So I give it the v password. enable password and show Cdp entry, and then I'm going to say all. And let's see, it's showing me that it's connected back to, we're on switch 1. It's pointing back to router 1. All right. So we've walked through this entire network. We've pretty much have discovered a lot of the pieces. We know that the server is out there. I can telnet over to that if I have to. And this is how you use CDP and some of the other commands that are available to us. I hope this was helpful. And now we'll go back to the PowerPoint, and I just want to make a couple of points on Visio and documentation. So now I want to take a quick look at Microsoft Visio, downloading Visio, as well as importing Cisco equipment icons into Visio. And in order to do that, we are going to go into our Canvas site, and we're going to take a look at some of the links that I've set you up for there. So we're on our Canvas site, and under our course calendar and assignments for the week of 10/28, you'll notice that I've got our Lab 7 page set up. I also have and I'll be posting this video specifically to this page. In either case, I also have the link for MS Visio software downloads. So let's take a look at this. So this takes us to our Canvas software downloads page, and as we scroll down on this, you'll notice that a couple of things that I've left here. One are these PowerPoint and Visio stencils. So this is the PowerPoint right here, and then this is the actual Visio. And in a moment, what we'll do is we're going to decompress that, and then we're going to bring that into our Visio. But first, you need to get a copy of Visio, and I've added this in here for our software downloads. Here is a guide on how to do this. I also have a video down below walking you through this process as well. And I would remind you that when you log into Azure, which is the service that provides us the software through Microsoft, that you use your student email address, okay, for bucks. So look at the video, look at the document, then you can log into the Dev Tools on Azure, and you can access and download your personal copy of Visio. By the way, there's all sorts of software up there. I would download every piece of software you can get your hands on, and remember, every time you download a piece of software, make sure you get the product key and you store that somewhere so that you don't lose it. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up Visio. Let's see, because I already have it loaded on my machine, and then I want to show you how to get the Cisco stencils into Visio. So here's Visio. Okay, and I'm going to select a basic network diagram. Here it is. And we'll start with that. And it's asking for US units, and I'll say create. And then it gives us some basic stencils over here, computers and monitors. And then it gives us network devices. And a lot of this is pretty standard. But I'm not really seeing, some of the Cisco things that I want to see in here. So what we're going to do is I want to add this. I want to add in those stencils and put them into my Visio. So to load up our stencils, just go back to your Canvas site. Okay, and you're going to download this file and just save it to wherever. Mine gets saved to the downloads folder. Next, going back to Visio, once you've downloaded it, go to More Shapes, then Open Stencil, then go to Downloads and go into your PPT VSS, and you'll see the VSS file, which is the stencil file. And we'll then click on that. We'll say Open, and there are all of our Cisco stencils, okay, that we can use. We can just drag those into our diagram. That's a bridge rather than a switch. Here's a workgroup switch. This is another workgroup switch. 100 base T hub. So we have a whole slew of different icons that we can use for documenting our network using Visio. Finally, I wanted to talk about some of the pieces of documentation that one should have with respect to their network. The first would be network diagrams, and these are usually visual representations or maps of our network devices based on either logical or physical connectivity. Physical topologies, you want to identify the different types of LANs that you've got, as well as their WAN connections and the types, whether it be a ring, a bus, a mesh, a star, what have you. And you also want to document the type of cables that you're using. Next, we want to have access methods. Okay, what types of protocols are being used for the purpose of access methods? And here, for instance, I'm referring to, let's say, Ethernet or wireless protocols such as 802.11 or WiMAX and so on. Next, we have our general protocols, and we want to do this by device, whether it be workstations, servers, network devices. We want to have a list of the network protocols that each one of these devices is using. This will be especially helpful to have when we go to set up security, and we want to make sure that we provide the necessary access to these devices for the protocols that they need, and to shut off those protocols that are not needed. Next, an inventory of all of our devices, including the make, the model, a brief description, what is it used for, what's its location, where is it, either in the building or what geographic location is this device in. Even you might give it a location within a particular room within the building, or even within the rack that it's mounted in. You also want to come up with some sort of uniform device ID number that your organization is going to use. Many times, if you're already walking into an organization, they have defined some kind of numbering scheme, and you need to learn about that and find out what that is. The next piece of documentation that you should consider is documenting what are the current operating systems or application versions that are running on each of the devices within your networks, regardless of whether it's a switch, or it's an access point, or it's a router, server, PC. You want to know what types of operating systems are running on each one of those devices. Next to last, we've got our applications. What types of applications or services are we running on the various devices within our network? We might have a router that might be running DHCP, or DHCP might be running on a server, okay, which is also happens to be running a let's say a web server, such as either IIS or Apache, what have you. These are all applications that are running on the various devices and that you should document. Finally, we want to have copies of configurations for your devices as well as backups of those devices, and we want to identify where are they being respectively stored. Okay, so that in the event that they're needed, we know where to find them and go get them. Well, I hope you found this video useful. I appreciate you taking the time to look at it. As always, I hope you'll also take the time and ask any questions about things that you're not sure of or that I was not clear with. Thank you again.